As the saying goes, short-term gain for long-term pain. That's not what we're advocating. Okay. Hey everyone, Rachel here. I know it's been a hot minute, and of course I've missed you all, but let me save my life updates for another video since there's something more pressing that we need to talk about. With all the buzz around IRCC putting a cap on international students and even introducing new restrictions for those looking to start in 2024, there's been a whirlwind of comments, opinions, and understandably, a lot of concern about the future of the international student program. So, the big question hanging in the air for all of us is it worth it to study in Canada in 2024? Or even in the next couple of years? So if you're wondering if Canada is still the dream destination for your studies, stick around and we'll talk more about it. Starting off, I think it's crucial we tackle the recent changes happening because honestly, they're game changers. And trust me, they're not just tweaks, they're major shifts that could sway your decision and affect how you tackle your application. So let's get into the policy changes and what you absolutely need to know before mapping your study journey to Canada. First off, in 2024, Canada is putting a temporary 2-year cap on international students. Particularly, Canada intends to approve 360,000 study permits, which seems like a lot, but it's actually a significant decrease of 35% from 2023. Now, how they plan to roll this out is pretty straightforward. Starting January 22nd, 2024, anyone applying for a study permit in Canada will now need an attestation letter from their province or territory. This means that schools across various areas will be limited to a set number of students that they can admit, effectively placing a cap on enrollments based on each province and territory. While it's still unclear on how they plan to roll out these provincial attestation letters, more news will come this March, but I just want you guys to get a general idea that this will be implemented soon. And just when you thought that was it, there's more. As of January 1st, 2024, the financial requirements for study permit applications have also seen a hike. You now need to show proof of funds of over 20,000 Canadian dollars from the previous 10,000 Canadian dollars. So bottom line is, your minimum proof of funds has increased. Now shifting gears here, if you're planning to work in Canada after your studies, there are some important updates to the post-graduation work permit program that you should be aware of. First up, a significant change is coming for students enrolled in curriculum licensing arrangements. So from September 1st, 2024, if your study program involves a private school using the curriculum of a public school, unfortunately, you'll no longer be eligible for the post-graduation work permit. On a brighter note, there is a silver lining for master's degree graduates. The eligibility for your PGWP has been extended to 3 years, which means after completing your master's degree, you can apply for a PGWP for up to 3 years, giving you more time to gain valuable Canadian work experience. Lastly, the rules around open work permits for spouses are also tightening. Going forward, only spouses of masters, PhD students, and other professional degrees will be eligible for open work permits. So if you're pursuing undergraduate or other levels of study, unfortunately, your spouse will not be eligible for an open work permit. This change underscores the importance of choosing the right program, as this affects you and your family's opportunities in Canada. So I'll keep this short and sweet, but if ever you need support in the program selection process or even school application process, we're here to help. My partner and I can guide you in the crucial decision to find the right school and program that fit your education and immigration needs. So if you want more information on how we can help, be sure to check out the details in the description box below. All right, let's zoom out for a bit to grasp the bigger picture, and let me explain why these policy changes are happening. According to Immigration Minister Mark Miller, the driving forces behind the student cap and the tighter regulations are twofold. First, to alleviate the housing shortage, which I'm not too convinced, and second is to address the misuse within the international student program. For the first part, if we take a closer look at the housing argument, in my opinion, it doesn't really quite add up. And let me explain why. There are currently 800,000 international students in Canada, which makes up about 2% of the Canadian population. Meanwhile, a recent report forecasts a shortfall of 3 to 4 million homes by 2030, suggesting a housing shortage of roughly 7.5 to 10% of the total population. Now, what I don't get is how targeting such a small segment of the population could be the key to solving the housing crisis. Because guys, let's be real. Shared accommodation, on-campus living, homestays are the primary options for many international students as their preferred type of housing. This effectively places students in a different housing market from Canadians who may be looking for single-family homes, condos, or townhouses. So essentially, we're in two different markets. So pinning the housing crisis on international students and expecting the cap to alleviate the housing shortage seems a bit misplaced and unreasonable, but that's my opinion. On the other hand, addressing the misuse within the international student program presents a more acceptable rationale. A report by StatCan highlights that approximately 19% of international students did not have a record of studying at a college or university here. And this issue escalates even further, with some private colleges in Ontario reporting up to 90% of students as no-shows. Such scenarios are often linked to diploma mills that attract students who fail to engage in genuine study efforts, thereby compromising the integrity of the international student program. Anyway, long story short, the cap seems more reasonable for these reasons because to me, it directly tackles a genuine challenge in the education system. Now that we've unpacked the policy changes and their underlying reasons, it's time to tackle the big question. Is it still worth it to study in Canada? Here's a straight answer. Yes, I believe it's still worth pursuing studies in Canada. In fact, I see it even more reason to choose Canada for your studies, and I'll give you 3 reasons why. First, better preparation for your journey to Canada. The new policies, including the increased proof of funds and the need for a provincial attestation letter, are designed to ensure that you're well prepared before arriving in Canada. In the past, some students didn't fully grasp how challenging managing finances and student life could be here. Without enough money for tuition and living expenses, many students face tough decisions like leaving Canada or enduring difficult situations to get by. Sure, the higher proof of funds might delay your plans because showing that you have at least 20 grand isn't a small feat. But look at it this way, it's actually in your best interest, preventing the hardships you might face here without adequate resources. As the saying goes, short-term pain for long-term gain really applies. As a student, your primary focus should be on your studies, not juggling full-time work or multiple jobs. Work during your studies is meant to supplement your student life, not sustain it. Relying solely on part-time jobs for significant expenses like rent, groceries, and transportation isn't practical. And while hustling might work for some, for most, it's really unsustainable. It can lead to burnout, distract you from studies, and even risk your status in Canada if it leads to dropping out of classes or not meeting your study permit conditions. These stricter rules aren't about making life harder for students. In fact, it's quite the opposite. They're designed to ensure that you're thoroughly prepared for your journey, covering all bases: academic, financial, and mental well-being. Second, the new rules aim to increase the proportion of genuine students in Canada. Remember the recent news of 700 Indian students receiving deportation letters? Well, that was a wake-up call to tighten the rules. Many international students have shared their frustrations about classmates who don't pull their weight in group projects or how crowded classrooms have affected their learning experience. This overcrowding happens because certain schools admit too many students for profit. These institutions typically offer programs with the allure of the PGWP eligibility, drawing students with low tuition fees or even substantial grants. But they fail to deliver quality education, leaving graduates ill-prepared for the job market. So with stricter rules in place, the focus shifts from quantity to quality. These new rules also compel schools to become more selective and aim to improve the caliber of their students. Since schools are assigned a limited number of attestation letters, they have to choose better and more qualified candidates for admission. So what does this mean for you? Well, you should see improved learning spaces, better support systems in place like housing accommodation, career services to hopefully better your opportunities after graduation, and other services for your mental well-being. Finally, the cap indirectly improves your odds of achieving long-term immigration goals in Canada. This is great news for international students who, after spending at least 2 years studying and a couple years working in Canada, are well positioned to contribute to the job market with their acquired knowledge and skills. One of the popular pathways to PR is the Express Entry program, but as you may have noticed, getting through the Express Entry has been quite challenging recently, with the cutoff scores soaring to the 500-point mark. To hit such high scores, you basically need to be a unicorn. You have to be at an optimal age range, have an impressive education level, and perhaps be fluent in both English and French, and all of this, ideally without needing a provincial nomination, which is so hard to get. Now, if you're wondering, why are the CRS cutoff scores so high? Well, the answer is quite simple, and it's because of increased competition. In a nutshell, as more people join the Express Entry pool, it gets harder to be selected for PR. So how does a student cap play into this? Well, by reducing student admissions by 35%, this move indirectly reduces the number of candidates entering the pool, thereby lowering the CRS cutoff score, and this should increase your chances of being selected for PR. Understanding the latest updates in Canada's education and immigration system can be overwhelming and concerning, especially if Canada has been on your radar. Do I agree with the cap? No. But do I agree with its proposed outcomes? Yes. I do believe that these changes are part of a strategic approach inspired by the saying, hard choices now, easy life later. The student cap and tighter restrictions might have its downsides, perhaps short-term impact on the economy, and some people might even say that it just further strains an already stressed education system. But if you look at the flip side, sticking with the status quo has its own set of issues too. Without change, the management of the education system remains unchanged, which has its own negative effects, and there will also be an increasingly fierce competition for PR, which also has its negative effects. So if we take a step back, this pause could be exactly what's needed, at least right now. It's not a permanent solution, but it gives Canada a moment to resolve some ongoing issues. So instead of viewing this cap as a hurdle or something negative, let's look at it as an opportunity. It's a chance to make necessary adjustments, ensuring that when you do come to Canada for your studies, you're stepping into a system that's better for everyone involved. Now, should you still consider studying in Canada? Absolutely. Canada's appeal remains strong thanks to its high-quality education, vibrant and diverse community, and compared to the US, UK, and Australia, Canada offers more pathways for PR, paired with many immigration benefits such as having the ability to work during and after your studies. I encourage those thinking about studying in Canada to go for it, but with a few caveats. You should definitely study in Canada if you're a student who is financially ready, organized in planning in their journey, and adaptable to changes. And guys, adaptability is key because if you struggle with these changes right now, adapting later without the right preparation will even be harder. In short, while there are more layers to navigate now, the opportunity for quality education and a future in Canada is still very much alive. But yeah, just be mindful of the new landscape as you plan your journey. Anyway, I hope this video was able to shed light on the recent changes, and I hope I've managed to address some of your concerns about moving forward with your plans to study in Canada. If this video has helped or resonated with you in any way, kindly share and like this video. Of course, I also want to hear from you. Whether you agree or disagree with the points I've raised, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, take care and be kind, and as always, I'll see you in the next video. Cheers!